I am your host of Across Generations, Tiffany D. Cross, and this is the only place where you will hear three different perspectives from three distinct generations of Black women, and I'm so thrilled to invite you to this conversation. Okay, the American dream. But what does that mean exactly? Because it's really taken on different meanings throughout the generations. But first, we do have to acknowledge that as Black people, the fact that we have survived the parts of this that are the American nightmare warrants supreme acknowledgement. But as we harness our piece of this country that we helped to build, what does the dream part of this look like? Now, when I was growing up, the dream was go to school, make good grades, graduate college, get a good job, work it for decades, get a husband, have some kids, become some version of Claire Huxtable, build up a retirement, and voila, die peacefully in your sleep surrounded by all your grandbabies. Let's just say I fell a little short. I set out to become a journalist. Well, I did that, but I got kicked out of school along the way. I set out to become a wife and mother, but the husband never came, and so went the kids. Definitely didn't want to do that part by myself. I worked hard for 20 plus years. I hosted a successful TV show for some years. Then my show got canceled and life continues to throw curveballs. The industry I work in is rapidly changing and I'm middle-aged now, you guys. So what the winter of my years will look like, I'm still trying to figure that out. Will I marry? Will I live in New York, DC, Atlanta? What will I do with my time when I retire? What choices can I make today that I won't regret 10 years from now? Because the one thing I do know is the older you get, the faster time moves. And what I can say for sure is that though I have no regrets about the choices I made for myself, when I look at older folks and the choices they had about work and partnership, and then I look at younger folks and watch them navigate the gig economy and go about life in a very different kind of piecemeal way, it begs the question, what exactly does the American dream look like when it comes to us across generations? So we're going to get into that conversation, and I have very distinguished guests here, and I'm very excited about it. We have the Honorable Justice Tanya R. Kennedy. She was appointed in July 2020 as an Associate Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department by Governor Andrew Cuomo. And before her appointment, Justice Kennedy served as a Justice of the Supreme Court. She is a product of the New York City public school system and a single parent household whose mother worked 2 jobs during Kennedy's early childhood and obviously made a lot of sacrifices to ensure she knew life existed beyond the Bronx. She is a graduate of Penn State and the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law and continues her commitment to the pursuit of higher education. I'm also joined by Imani Blair. She's 29 years old and she's a full-time podcast producer, real estate investor, and get this, a rapper. Will she have bars for us? Stay tuned. She did not complete a bachelor's degree. However, she obtained her associate's degree from C. Atlanta Institute. Now, she's unsure if she wants to get married or have children, but she does believe you can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it. So we have a lot to get to, ladies, and I'm so happy you're both here. I think I sit between you guys both physically and ideologically when it comes to the American dream. So I'm going to start with you, Justice Kennedy. You are the traditional person. I mean, you really believed in and pursued the traditional idea of American dream. You went to school, you worked hard, you went to law school, now you're a judge. Is there anything about your path that you think was not traditional?
No. And I just want to say thank you for having me and move to New York. Move to New York.
But, I'm working on it.
but in all honesty, I'm a product of the church. So a lot of my background is from my church. I come from a single parent household. So I had my mother, I had my grandmother, I had my grandfather, who was not my biological grandfather, but that was the person that I knew as my grandfather. I had people in my church who, just like Imani said, you can be what you want to be. They supported me in everything. And for me, I enjoyed school so much so that when I graduated from Penn State, my mother said, okay, you're either going to do, a graduate school, which I'm not going to pay for. Okay. Or you're going to get a job, but you cannot be a professional student. So that's my story.
Well, how did you pay for it?
Loans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took a lot of years to pay those off. So I don't have any law school loans. Hallelujah.
That is a sizable debt, though.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I want to
it
get
is.
into, because debt
Absolutely.
has a direct correlation with some people's choices around college. I
Yes.
want to shift to you, Imani, though, because you aren't about that life. You're like, you know what? I see a different path. So tell us about your path and why that works for you.
Sure. I'd like to say, I don't work jobs. I am a job.
I love that. You're not a businessman. You're a
I'm
business
a
man. I got it.
For sure. I've been an entertainer since I was 10 years old. I performed at Showtime at the Apollo at 10. I was a model, a child model, competitor, and a corporate never was. It was a dream. It was never in the cards for me. I love my life. It's really fun. But I will say people who do work corporate have one boss. I have several bosses.
Right.
I have several responsibilities, but I can come to New York at 11 a.m., on a Tuesday and do a podcast where like a lot of my peers can't do that who work regular corporate jobs.
Yeah.
So, it's not always the easiest, but it works for me and I love it here.
But I think what you said is so interesting because a lot of people don't realize that when you work for yourself, you have multiple bosses because you have deliverables to all of those folks.
For sure.
Now, when I grew up, the idea was get that good government job or get that job where you can work for decades and hopefully you'll get to retirement. I was already a working adult by the time the gig economy launched. So I certainly could have taken that route. I didn't. That happened for me much later in life. And so when I had a show on MSNBC, when that show got canceled, I have a bunch of women in media who all had really interesting takes on it. And I will say, Jamel Hill is a good friend of mine and said, yeah, you don't have to work for anybody. Like you work with entities, you work with people. And that's where I am now. It makes me a little nervous,
It's terrifying.
Yes.
It's hard.
I'm used to that check hitting on the 1st and 15th.
Sure.
And when you got to go out there and kill what you want to eat, it's, separates the women from the girls, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I'm really still trying to navigate that and find my comfort in that. I do find that it can be more lucrative. But you got to be a hustler. I so appreciate the comfort of security that a job like yours offers, particularly being on the bench. Like, who is your boss? Do you have a boss? Technically, I suppose you do on the bench, but you're essentially the CEO of that courtroom. You're in charge of everything.
Not exactly. So what I do now, I'm an associate justice of the Appellate Division First Department, and I'm just happy to say that there are 21 justices on that court, and there's a presiding justice, and her name is the Honorable Diane T. Renwick, the first woman of color to serve as the presiding justice of that court, even in the state of New York. And so when we decide cases, we decided a panel of 5. When I was a trial court judge, I had my own courtroom. I issued the orders. Now it's a panel of 5, but certainly I was elected and appointed. So obviously I have a responsibility to the people of the state of New York, right? And
they're your bosses.
Well,
in some cases, right? So to speak,
your
constituent.
Exactly. And certainly the litigants who come before us, when they file their appeals, when they argue their appeals, and we have to issue those decisions.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Because you had this traditional path and you've been successful at it. That is like the ultimate goal, to land on the bench, particularly if you work in the legal field. What do you think when you meet someone like Imani, who, does that make you nervous when you see young people do that? Or do you think that is the way to do it? I wish I could have done it.
Well, you know what? And first of all, I told Imani that she's a rock star. I like her, and the thing is, different generations. My mother, 82 years young. And so she went to high school. She worked at American Express. She worked her way up from an encoder operator to working in the office of the CEO, where she traveled all across the country and the world, teaching customer service relations. you cannot do that anymore. There was a time when you can do that. In my generation, I'm 56, right? So yes, you go to college or have some other type of trade, but pretty much it was college, right? And perhaps an advanced degree. I did that. But I love this generation, the millennials. What are they doing? I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. I want to call the shots. I want to do a trade. So listen, she has a couple of jobs. I love it.
Right.
That income stream. She's a rapper. She's a podcaster.
That's yeah.
I love it.
It provides a certain amount of freedom.
Yeah.
I will say, I think for me, like I said, it makes me a little nervous because I think about retirement. Now, being a public servant,
Sure,
your latter years of life look different financially.
Absolutely.
Where you have to create what that looks like. Have you thought about what life, you're in your 20s, have you thought about what life looks like financially in your 50s and 60s?
Like the retirement plan,
Yeah.
right? So, y'all say rapper and producer, podcast producer. I am that, but I feel like my best gig is the real estate.
Yeah, I forgot that.
So I bought a house off hustling, off my gigs, and now I rent out rooms in my house, and I'm saving up that money so that I can renovate my shed and turn that into another house, eventually buy another house, so that's where I really see this going. Real estate is where it's really, I see a lot of income for me, but even that's scary. Me and my mom were just talking about it. I'm like, well, what if nobody people are broke.
Yeah.
Times are hard. And so I had a tenant move out a few months ago. It took me a few months to get another tenant. That's the part they don't tell you.
Right.
But
in those months, you have to spend your own money.
Spend my own money and pay my mortgage, which that it is what it is. That's my responsibility. But that's the part they don't tell you. You do real estate, and it's not as easy as it looks, but it is what it is. It's what I chose. And I feel like that's really where I see my path going. And that's where I see my retirement going, is I want to just keep doing real estate and having more homes.
If you don't mind me asking, about how much money do you make annually, per month? How, because you don't have a 9 to 5. I don't know if you look at it monthly or annually.
Yeah, annually, I make about $80,000.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you live, what state?
In Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the cost of living in Richmond, Virginia is very different than what it is.
Of course. I know 80,000 here is broke, right? But in where I'm from, it's cool. It's
you're
cool.
Comfortable.
Yeah. And that's on the lower scale. If I get certain gigs, or I do voiceover work too. Y'all could probably tell. So I was on the Virginia Lottery commercial. That was $10,000, so sometimes things will just happen. And that's what I love about what I do. One of my friends said, she said, Imani, I don't know how you can live not knowing how much money you're going to make. I said, I don't know how you can live knowing exactly how much you're going to make. For me, the sky is the limit. Yeah. And that's how I look at it.
That is a really good point. I don't know how you live knowing exactly how much money you're going to make.
That's kind of depressing to me. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. For you, for retirement, will you work after retirement?
So if I can just go back to what Imani said,
ma'am.
I'm just marveling over her. And I see, people like Imani in this generation, much more forward thinking than we were at that age, thinking about retirement. I wasn't thinking about that. But now to get to your question, listen, perhaps there may come a time when I'm no longer on the bench. That may happen, right? Where I may retire from the bench, as my other colleagues do. But then it's about retooling. What will I do next?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just focusing on the here.
Right. Well, then let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What Imani is younger than us. You are older than me. I'm in the middle of you guys.
Yeah, 56.
Yes, I'm 45. But what do you wish you knew about money when you were Imani's age?
Oh, listen. You know what? That's just something that I really didn't think about, about retirement. Now, I will say the great thing is that I had deferred compensation. Now, I could have put more into it as I did, but I've had to learn that, So deferred compensation, having those advance directives, a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, all of these things, a will. But
Yeah.
that was something that happened later.
Yeah.
Thank God I have that now. Insurance, right? Life insurance, long-term
Yeah. Those
insurance.
are,
That's important.
I have to say for me, what I wish I had known when I was your age, I did not know how quickly 45 would come.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here,
Yeah.
I can't imagine how quickly 60 is going to come or retirement's going to come. And so I was really good with saving money because I've learned, or my entire life, I understood the ground can drop from under you at any given point. So I've always been okay. Not as okay as I want to be, but I've been okay where it's like I'm not going to be out here panhandling in New York begging people for money. But I do wish that I had understood investment earlier.
Same.
Right. Like you're buying real estate and
Yeah.
homes. One of the things, I wasn't in a position to do that. So when I moved, I moved to Washington, D.C. when I was really young, like 21. I didn't have the money to buy a home in these pre-gentrified neighborhoods. They were going for like $250,000. Now they're worth over $1 million. That wasn't even an option for me. Jay-Z talks about this in 444 about what happened in Dumbo in Brooklyn, how
Right.
the real estate just went up. So I think it's really wise of you.
Mhm.
But home ownership isn't the only path to wealth anymore.
Right.
So I wish I'd understood the markets. I wish I had, put $100 a month into some stock that's
Yeah.
worth, Nvidia
Same.
got to like $1 trillion. It's like,
Yeah.
man, what if I had done that?
Same.
So I don't know what my money looks like at 50 or 60.
I was fortunate enough, and this was by my mother's prodding. I live in a low equity co-op.
Mhm.
I got that just 3 years out of law school. And thank God that I can live in this area. I live in Harlem.
Mhm.
And so I would not be able to afford it now. But,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
a very reasonable maintenance that I pay.
Home
along with
ownership has
parking.
such credo in our
Yeah,
communities for that
exactly,
reason.
Exactly.
I'll tell you a little bit about my college journey because I want to hear about yours. But I will say I dreamed of going to an HBCU. I grew up watching A Different World, and I could not wait. So I actually only applied to Clark Atlanta University. That was the only school I wanted to go to in the Atlanta University Center. I got accepted to Clark, and I showed up like I am ready to work. I didn't hang out. I wasn't a wild kid. I don't think, this might be TMI, I don't even think I had sex the entire time I was in college because I was so focused on being a certain
It's strict.
I was so focused on being a certain kind of person. And I didn't hang out with other students. I was hanging out with my professors. I read every book they gave me. I was that focused. And I got kicked out of school. Why? Because I ran out of money. I had no support. I was filling out FAFSA forms by myself. I didn't know. There wasn't no Google at this time either. So I'm literally with a pen and paper trying to figure it out. And at some point they were like, hey babe, it costs money to go here. Like, where's your money? And after 2 years, I thought life was over. I thought this was my moment and I failed. I could not complete this. And so it was devastating. I have to say though, once that happened, it gave me such a grind because I showed up feeling like I had to prove to everybody. So after wanting to be a journalist, I got a job. I had experience. So I did an urban journalism workshop with NABJ. I had learned my craft enough that I could enter the workforce, but it was such a hard time. So I got a job. I remember I was 20 years old and I got a job doing the news in Atlanta for the hottest radio station at the time, WVEE 103. And baby, you could not tell me I was not Barbara Walters. Like every morning I showed up like, good morning, everyone. And it is Tuesday, October 2nd.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I was just ready to go. I took it very seriously. There were always all these celebrities around. Like Trina would be there. Keith Sweat would be there. And I would come in with my little glasses on. I didn't even need glasses. I just wanted to look like I was somebody. My little reading glass. I'm like, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And I was so focused on doing news. I kept climbing. I eventually got hired at CNN. I worked 7 days a week. I had no days off. We only had to work 5, but I wanted to be there all the time. I tell people all the time, my dream was to be the Brown Murphy Brown. You're old enough to
I
get this
remember.
reference.
I remember
You
Murphy
don't know?
Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm lost. I'm
Yes.
lost.
Murphy Brown was this TV character.
Yes.
She was this white, soulful woman. And I just thought, I want to live in DC. I want to cover politics. I want to do this. And so I eventually, CNN relocated me to Washington, DC. It was the nation's capital. And I tell you, when I got off that plane, I wanted to walk in front of the Capitol and spin around like I was Mary Tyler Moore. Like I was just so in my element. And I was grinding, Imani, grinding. The industry was not very welcoming to me. I was the only. As y'all can imagine, we've all probably been the only at some point. I was the only. And I, I was 20 something and I was going to work with young white girls. It was the first time somebody would ask me, "Oh, I love those shoes. Who are they?" I didn't even know what that meant. Like, who are they? I mean, I got these on sale from Ross, dressed for less, because that's all I could afford. I used to, I wore the same pair of heels so much they wore down and they broke. So I used to pretend that I left my heels at home. When I got to work, I would have my CNN badge prominently displayed, and I would pretend that I had put money into the train. And I'm like, guys, it's broken again. Because they, would believe me if they're like, oh, you're a professional. I struggled. And so when I see people like you, just kind of out there figuring it out day to day, it's like, well, damn, I kind of was doing that. I just didn't realize it at the time. Life had thrown me so many curveballs. So I say all that to say, I'm curious how you got to the point where it's like, I got my associate's degree and I'm done.
Sure. Well, I went to school to get an associate's degree because, like I told you, I'm a rapper, entertainer. And so at the time, I thought that I wanted to be in the studio with other artists or recording myself. A big cost to being a recording artist is studio time, you know? So I went to school for audio engineering thinking that was my path, not knowing that podcasting and media was really my path. What helped me more than college was a course I took called Idea to Launch, a podcast course. And that really is what changed my life. That's what really taught me podcasting. And so I encourage kids, like, when you find out what you want to do, go specific, go really niche and go specific to that. Because if it wasn't for Idea to Launch, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, And so college was cool. I got my associate's degree. That's cool. I'm still paying student loans. That's not cool. Joe Biden, you did not keep your promise,
Well, he did eliminate a significant amount of student debt for people.
Me.
Okay.
That's them. But yeah, so I did take a course though. I did pay to take a course for something I was passionate in. But that's really where I got the most value. And that's what I recommend when I see, kids wanting to do stuff. I'm like, go specific to that.
Yeah. Just for a point of political clarification, because I wouldn't want us to put this out there. It wasn't necessarily Joe Biden. It was the Supreme Court and Republican resistance. So not a political show, but I just want to make that clear point just for when this airs. It'll be close to election season. So I want to make sure people know. But I hear you. But student debt really is a big reason why some people make a different choice. Like I said, I got kicked out of school because I didn't have the money to keep paying. And I still left with student loans. It took me years to pay off. HBCUs are not inexpensive schools to attend. One of the best experiences of my life, but they're expensive to attend. So I completely understand. There's a lot of discussion now about our college degrees necessary. And so you talked about your loans and you talked about your income. There is someone who thinks they are not necessary. So Gilly the Kid, who's a podcaster, he hosts $1 million worth of game. I don't know if this is $1 million worth of game that he's about to spit right here, but I will play it for you all and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Ask y'all this question: is college overrated? I need to know, because most of the motherfuckers I know that went to college is not successful. So like, is college overrated? And if you go to fuck to college, you should go to college for something that when you fucking graduate, as soon as you graduate, they got a motherfucking check waiting on you. Because college starting to seem like it's over fucking rated out here. I just was talking to a motherfucker that did 6 years in college, but they boss ain't never been to college. How the fuck does that work? You got all these motherfucking degrees, but your boss graduated high school. Get the fuck out of here, man. College is overrated, man, in 2024.
Okay, so that was the very articulate Gilly the Kid. I have to say, it sounds like there's animus almost for people who went to college. And I think it is important here to just share some data. Because everybody has an anecdotal story, but the data shows that a bachelor's degree can be beneficial. According to a report by the Institute for Higher Education, 83% of schools serving 93% of undergraduates provide an ROI, a return on investment, within 10 years. So, if you went to college and you were able to pay off those loans, I think that's important to know. College graduates still mostly earn higher wages than those who did not. And some researchers claim that the economic benefits of a college degree are longer lasting. So it's certainly not to say that if you didn't, that, there's a challenge to you achieving success. Obviously, there isn't. But I am a little concerned about conflating the idea of getting an education with making money. Sometimes you go to college to learn, to literally acquire an education. Sometimes you go to college to be a public servant where there may not be a check waiting for you, but you may exact change in your immediate surroundings and do the world a greater good. So I don't know if that $1 million worth of game was worth $10 right there. No diss to him. But it was striking to me how there was some animosity there, I thought. What was your take?
My real honest first thought is that the issue with podcasting now is everything is so matter of factly.
Yeah.
College is dumb. College is good. Like, that's just so, that's just so dramatic. That's so dramatic. Nothing is matter of factly. Everybody's stories are completely different. I'll start by saying that. What I will say is, for my personal life and my network and my friends, this is going to sound a type of way, but it's the truth. I make more and I do more than all of my friends who went to college. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. Not to say that they shouldn't have went to college.
Right.
One of my good friends, she's a therapist. She helps kids. Like, she has a master's degree. Like, I couldn't do that.
Right.
So it's like, we need that. But do I think everybody needs to go to college? No.
Right.
And when I graduated from high school, they did make you feel bad if you didn't want to go to college. If that wasn't something you desired, they made you feel like you were going to be a loser, made you feel like, life wasn't going to be good. And that's not the truth necessarily either. If you can save some money and not have student loans, do it.
And let me just say this for the other side of that. I'm just struck by his animosity towards college. But on the other side of that, listen, with automation and AI, like, it is changing the game in hireability and workforce development. So we really don't know what the future looks like. You certainly do not have to have any degree to be successful. And, there are some companies who like their folks homegrown and will take you right out of high school and train you to be, an employee for that particular company. So I think there certainly is another side to that argument, minus the animosity.
Yeah, he's angry. He's mad.
He's mad about something. Big mad. What do you say, Justice Kennedy?
I would have loved to see his facial expressions as he was speaking. I won't get into the language, but, let me say this. College is not for everyone. Mm-hmm. However, I think for our people, Black people, you need some type of education, some type of trade. So let's take Imani, for example. She took that course. Mm. So she increased her knowledge. And certainly, Tiffany, I agree with you with all the statistics that you brought up. Yes, there is a sense of quote unquote economic stability, but we know with COVID-19, nothing is secure anymore. Life happens. And let me just say that I wanted to major in journalism. My dream school was the Syracuse University.
Great
SI Newhouse School of Communications.
Yeah.
I was admitted with 0% of financial aid. And it was expensive then. Penn State offered financial assistance. My mother was willing to sacrifice. And I said, Mom, I can't do that. I cannot put that burden on you. So I went to Penn State. Now, I don't regret it. It wasn't meant for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, even some companies now, they are removing the college requirement. So I think it depends on the industry. For example, if you want to be a lawyer, I'm going to say, New York, college, you have to then take the LSAT. So it depends on the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe that college now is the end all or be all.
Yeah.
I think you have to be more open.
Yeah. I'll say from this conversation, Imani certainly gave us $1 million worth of game.
Oh, yes.
I appreciate what you're
Plus,
saying.
plus.
That's right. You're saying, hey, it ain't for everybody.
Oh, it's not.
It might be for some, but
Yeah,
it ain't
for
for
sure.
everybody.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's been proven.
Yeah, exactly. You just brought up a point, a really good point. I think there are many companies out there that are eliminating the requirement to even have a college degree. And I'm just curious, where do you all think that the workforce development is going if we're eliminating the requirements, at least some companies for now, eliminating the requirements for a bachelor's degree? And then what do you say to younger people? Because for so long, particularly in the Black community, like education has been so important to our community. What do you say to younger people who are like, well, why am I going to go to college when companies are eliminating that requirement at all?
I think it really focuses on skills. And once again, education is more than college. There's so many avenues. It's about gaining knowledge, gaining skill, and then applying that skill, applying that knowledge. And I just think this is such an exciting time, with respect to AI, generative AI. And I just think that the best is yet to come, with respect to technology, and more so these younger generations, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and their mindset with respect to being their own boss, really being more civically engaged than we were.
Having work-life balance. I had never heard that term until I was well into a working adult.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say there were people on my team who would tell me, I can't make this meeting or I can't stay late because I have X, Y, and Z. I'm going to just tell you, in my 20s, I would never. Okay? Like I was so focused.
Right.
And I will be honest with you, Imani, I would get frustrated. So I'm like, I really don't want to hear about your work-life balance. I don't want to hear that your dog died yesterday. And I love dogs. Like I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Like this is what's going on. And I had to learn. It's like, what these young folks are teaching us something.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
They are teaching because it is not the business. Like it ain't no badge of honor to say I work 18 hours a day. I work 18.
Absolutely.
Like there's something about that don't feel right.
And let me just say this too. And also the emphasis on mental wellness. It's these younger generations that's really focusing on that. So I just think this is an exciting time.
Yeah.
And they're taking us forward.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you for that $1 million worth of game, Imani. I think it's a spectrum though. Really, it's a spectrum. Like for some people it works, for some people it doesn't. But look, at the end of the day, I think to our listeners and our viewers that we respect whatever choice that you want to make. I want to congratulate everyone for surviving what America is. No matter when you came into this country, it was not a country that greeted you with opportunity or wealth building the way it has for some other communities. And so I think if you are managing to work, support yourself, maintain your mental health, you are already winning. And that is what $1 million worth of game looks like. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of Across Generations. We have many more conversations like this coming up. So we will see you next time right back here.